You know that saying, don't poke the bear? Yeah, someone should have told my HOA that before they decided to mess with my property. It all started on one of those perfect late spring mornings, the kind where the sun is just warm enough to make you feel alive, and the breeze carries that sweet smell of freshly cut grass from the neighbors' yards. I was sitting on my back porch, coffee in hand, watching my golden retriever, Duke, chase squirrels like it was his full-time job. Life was good. At least, it was until Marjorie showed up. Marjorie, the HOA president, is the kind of woman who looks like she's been permanently sucking on a lemon. Tall, rail-thin, hair pulled so tight it looks like it's trying to escape her scalp. She wears pastel sweater sets, even in 85-degree heat, and walks around with a clipboard like she's the sheriff of Pleasant Pines Estates. And believe me, she loves that clipboard. That morning, she was marching up my driveway like she owned the place, which, spoiler alert, she didn't. I put my coffee down, already bracing myself. "Good morning, Marjorie," I said, forcing a smile. "Mr. Carter," she replied, in that tone that makes your own name sound like a threat. "We have a small matter to discuss." She flipped a page on her clipboard and tapped it with her pen. "According to our recent property review, part of your backyard actually falls under HOA common property. The board has decided to repurpose it. We'll be listing it for sale to raise funds for community projects." I laughed. Not the polite kind. The kind that bursts out before you can stop it. "You're joking, right?" Marjorie's face didn't move. "I assure you, this is no joke. The survey shows." "Survey? What survey?" "That's my land. I've got the deed in my safe." She pursed her lips like she was smelling spoiled milk. "I think you'll find things aren't as clear as you believe. The board will be placing a notice next week." And just like that, she pivoted on her kitten heels and strutted off, leaving me on my porch with a half-empty coffee and a pit forming in my stomach. That afternoon, I dug out my property deed. Sure enough, the line of my backyard, complete with the old oak tree and my little vegetable garden, was right where I'd always known it to be. I called the county clerk's office to confirm. The guy on the phone, a cheerful man named Kevin, assured me, "Yep, Mr. Carter, your lot's been recorded that way since 1978. No changes, no disputes." So why was my HOA suddenly claiming it was theirs? The next few days, I got my answer, or at least part of it. I started hearing little whispers from neighbors. Apparently, the HOA had been having money troubles. Something about a botched pool renovation project that went way over budget, plus some questionable consulting fees. They needed cash, and fast. And what better way to get it than by selling off unused common land? The problem was, my yard was their unused common land. By the end of the week, the notice went up. A big laminated sign, right at the edge of my backyard. "Future site for community sale. Property to be auctioned by Pleasant Pines Estates HOA." Duke barked at it like it was a home invader. I felt the same way. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of my ceiling fan. My yard wasn't just grass and trees. My dad and I had built that garden together before he passed. I'd planted those rose bushes in memory of my mom. That space was mine, in every sense of the word. And now, they were coming for it. When I saw Marjorie the next morning, she didn't even bother with small talk. "The board will expect you to remove your personal items from that section of the yard within 30 days. Something in me snapped. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but one thing was certain, the HOA had picked the wrong homeowner to mess with. Cliffhanger, little did Marjorie know. I had a plan forming that would not just protect my yard, but humiliate the HOA so badly they'd never try this stunt again. Things went downhill fast. Over the next 2 weeks, the HOA started acting like my yard was already theirs. One afternoon, I caught a couple of landscapers out back, measuring the area and taking photos. When I asked who sent them, they said, "The HOA board." Then came the violation letters. Unauthorized structure on common property, referring to my garden shed. Obstruction of planned sale, because I'd locked my gate. And my personal favorite, aggressive canine interference, because Duke barked at their surveyor. I swear, they were inventing new rules just to harass me. One night, I vented to my neighbor, Tom, over beers in my garage. Tom's one of those guys who's been in the neighborhood forever and knows everyone's secrets. He leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, Marjorie's been itching to sell land for years. She wants to beautify the neighborhood. Translation, she wants a new gazebo named after her." I laughed bitterly. Over my dead body. That's when Tom told me something interesting. "You've got leverage, man. If that land is yours, and the HOA's trying to sell it as theirs, that's fraud. And if they've got money problems, I bet they've made other, questionable decisions." That was the spark I needed. Over the next week, I started digging, both literally and figuratively. I spent my mornings going through county land records, confirming again that the disputed strip was unquestionably mine. Then I started looking into HOA meeting minutes. Lucky for me, they're public record. That's where I struck gold. It turned out the HOA had spent nearly $45,000 on consulting services for the pool project, and those services were provided by a company owned by Marjorie's brother-in-law. Not only that, but several emergency repair funds were withdrawn without board approval. This wasn't just shady. It was the kind of thing that could end an HOA president's career. Meanwhile, the physical situation at my yard kept escalating. One Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of hammering. I looked out the window to see two HOA hired workers installing a for sale sign inside my fence. That's when I decided, enough talk. It was time for action. I called my cousin Rick, who owns a fencing company. "How fast can you get me a privacy fence?" I asked. "What's the length?" he replied. "Big enough to surround that disputed strip and a certain patch of HOA common area they care a lot about." Rick chuckled. "I'm listening." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, sketching out my plan. Not only was I going to defend my land, I was going to take something from them. See, just beyond my yard was the HOA's prized common area, a little grassy space with benches where they held their monthly board meetings when the weather was nice. My property line ran so close to it that with a little creative surveying, I could build a fence that would cut off their only access path. Legally? Totally fine. I'd confirmed it with Kevin at the county office. Morally? Well, let's just say I wasn't losing sleep. By the end of that weekend, Rick and I had a date. The fence would go up next Saturday morning, bright and early. And I made sure to invite an audience. Cliffhanger, the HOA was about to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong neighbor, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp, cool air that makes you feel unstoppable. Rick's truck rolled up at 7 a.m. sharp, loaded with cedar panels and posts. Marjorie was out for her morning power walk when she spotted us unloading. She marched over, face already flushed. "What is this?" "You can't build here, that's common property." I smiled like a cat who'd just eaten the canary. "Actually, Marjorie, according to the county records, this," I pointed to the disputed strip, "is mine. And so is this narrow little strip right here that just happens to be the only access to your precious bench area." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's ridiculous. You can't just." "Oh, I can," I said, holding up a printed copy of my deed, complete with the official seal. Rick and his crew got to work. The sound of post-hole diggers thudding into the ground echoed through the neighborhood. By 9 a.m., curious neighbors had started gathering. By 11 o'clock, we had an audience of at least 20 people, phones out, recording the whole thing. The fence went up panel by panel, the fresh cedar scent mixing with the smell of victory. By noon, my backyard was not only secured, but the HOA's common area was completely inaccessible unless they wanted to hop a 6-foot fence. Marjorie was fuming. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Funny," I said, "that's exactly what I was going to say to you." But I wasn't done. That afternoon, I sent an anonymous packet to every homeowner in Pleasant Pines. Inside, photocopies of my deed proving the land was mine. The HOA meeting minutes showing the $45,000 payout to Marjorie's brother-in-law. A friendly note suggesting they might want to ask where their HOA dues were really going. By Monday, the neighborhood was buzzing. On Tuesday, I got an email from the HOA board, minus Marjorie, informing me that she had resigned for personal reasons. The best part? The new board not only dropped all the bogus violation letters, but they also reimbursed me for the cost of the fence as a gesture of goodwill. And that little patch of grass with the benches? Still locked behind my cedar fortress. I keep the key. Sometimes I'll sit out there with Duke, sipping coffee, just to remind myself, and anyone walking by, that you don't mess with a man's yard. In life, there are two kinds of people, those who roll over when someone pushes them, and those who build a fence so big, the pushers can't even get close.